Hey everybody, St. Paul here, and I am so excited. I've got musical royalty on the show today. Ivan Neville is next on Music on a Run. Hey everybody, St. Paul here. Welcome to episode 44 of Music on the Run. Hey, I want to continue with my gratitude segment. I want to highlight a couple of the people who financially help us put on this program. They're called patrons. Okay, and you're probably going, what the heck is that? Those are the people who help us out. They get a little something in return. They get some swag. They got a little Music on the Run swag. But really, they help us cover the cost of putting this thing on websites, everything that has to go into this. If you want to go check that out and you want to become a part of the Music on the Run team, please go to www.patreon.com/Music on the Run podcast. I want to give a big shout out to our $10 a month patrons, Miles Matisse and Ron Carbone. You guys have been with us since the beginning, and I want to say thank you. We could not do this podcast without you. And one more little gratitude segment. I want to shout out to the Motor team. My producer, Davide Raso. I do know him, actually. Tanner Montague, who does all the video editing, and Owen Sartori for their dedication to the Motor team. Man, again, I couldn't pull this off without you, so really thankful for you. All right, let's move on to my guest today. This guy is part of a musical dynasty. He's a multi-instrumentalist, an artist, a singer, songwriter, and a complete badass. He's played or recorded with the Nevilles, Bonnie Raitt, Don Henley, the Rolling Stones, and has his own band called Dumpster Funk. Please welcome my buddy, Ivan Neville. Ivan.
Thank you. How you doing? What an amazing intro there. Thank you very much.
Hey, yeah. You paid me to say all of that.
Oh, yeah, right. All right. Yeah.
Man, how you doing? I saw you, what was that, about a month ago in New York?
Yes, at the Love Rocks Hang.
What exactly is that for people who don't know what Love Rocks is?
It's an organization called God's Love We Deliver, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And they've been providing meals and help to people that could possibly not get to a meal or not very mobile, you might say. People that are either homeless, stuck somewhere, very ill, or just can't move around too much. So that's an organization that provides meals and stuff like that for those that can't get to.
So the funny story is that I, previously to the last time that I saw you the year before.
Yeah.
At that same concert. I was doing a show down the street at Iridium. You and my big brother Ricky and all the cats were doing a show at the same theater, and this was the night or the day or the week we find out that COVID was a thing.
COVID! The original COVID. March,
what was that?
March of 2020.
Yeah.
And it was, to be exact, it was around the 10th, 11th, 12th of March.
Yep.
And it was right when the COVID, the word had gotten out that there's this thing that's pretty bad and could make you sick and possibly kill you, called COVID-19. And we had just really found out kind of about it. And that the night before the show that we were going to do, and you were planning on doing a show in New York as well, right? So a separate gig you were playing.
I played down the street at the Iridium, because they had canceled Broadway that day.
They canceled, so on the gig ended up happening on the 12th. On the night of the 11th, everybody's hanging out in the lobby of that hotel, the Art House Hotel. And everybody got notifications on their phones that the NBA had shut down.
Ooh.
The NBA. And
Right.
I don't think they get enough talk of they were the first major organization to shut it down.
Right.
The NBA. And this was before there was any mandates of any kind.
Right.
The NBA shut down.
Yeah, that
And
started
we were
scaring
like,
people, didn't
wow.
it?
And that kind of got everybody's attention. And the gig that we did the next night, they turned it into, it was supposed to be maybe 3,000 people in there in the Beacon Theater. They turned into a streaming event for friends and family. I think they had a couple, 200-300 people in there. But still, I was there.
Yep.
And so was your brother Ricky and many others. And when I got home that weekend, Friday, by Sunday, I had fever.
Oh, no.
I had a fever. The missus, the boss of the house, she instructed me to go and buy a proper thermometer because we'd been hearing more and more about this COVID thing. And I bought the best thermometer in the pharmacy, that particular drugstore I went to. I'm like, I want the best one. I want to make sure. But I was scared because I felt kind of weird. I felt a little odd. And I knew I was going to have fever. I swear to God, I knew it. And we took my son, who was 6 at the time. He's now 7. We took all of our temperatures, and I had fever. I was about 100 and something plus, and I was cast to the back room, right over there. I was sent to the back room, isolated from the rest of the house, and I started feeling sick, like really bad. And fever got worse. I had fever upwards of 103, 102.9, a couple times. Lost appetite completely. I was laid out pretty bad. I mean, is this a G-rated show?
You can swear your butt off. This is your show.
Well, I was laying out like a $2 cracker. All right, that's how that's how bad I was back there in the back room. I was bad, and I couldn't eat. I had fever. They wouldn't test me for a minute. I didn't get tested for about the first 8 or 9 days. I finally got tested.
Okay.
I was diagnosed with double pneumonia.
Oh.
And those of you who don't know what double pneumonia is, that's pneumonia in both of your lungs.
Right.
And yeah. And so I had that. And then they wouldn't test me. Twice I got turned down to be tested because when I happened to go to get tested, mind you, it was early on. So they weren't trying to test anyone unless you seemed severely ill.
Right.
So they wasn't wasting the tests on someone that maybe looked somewhat healthy. I didn't look at that point. And it just so happened when I went to get tested, my temperature was normal.
Oh.
They took my temperature,
right,
98.6, and said, we're not testing you. I wasn't coughing up a lung or anything like that, but I did have pneumonia.
Right.
And I was really bad for a couple of weeks. I finally got tested, and I was positive. And to get the test results back took about another 8 days. So I saw 2 or 3 different doctors, and none of them knew exactly what to tell me, except that I just assumed that I had the COVID.
Right.
And they said, you should assume you have it. Because I took the influenza test. I didn't have flu.
Okay.
So we were assuming that I had COVID. So stay your ass in that back room and don't go around anybody else, which I ended up, it was too late. My household, we got the COVID in the house.
Right. Keep going.
And the boss lady got the COVID, but her version was not as bad as mine was. But I was so pitiful, I didn't really notice how sick she really was because she was looking after me. So this pretty much lasted for about 6 weeks. And it gradually got better.
Wow.
And I had the difficulty breathing at a certain point. The fever went away. I got my appetite back. And the it was at that point where I got the shortness of breath. So it didn't all happen, everything at one time for me. And by the way, the whole time, my oxygen levels were pretty low, but like in the 70s or some shit like that.
Whoa.
So I was lucky, and someone provided me with an oxygen machine at my house. So I was able to utilize that, and that helped me get through it and helped me to not, I avoided having to go to a hospital and be admitted to a hospital because I had my own oxygen machine at the house.
Whoa.
And yeah, so it was about a 6-week ordeal from March the 15th. I finally got tested. I tested negative on May the 5th.
Wow.
Yeah. And I got to tell you, the last 2 or 3 weeks of it was really scary because I was feeling progressively better mostly, but I would go a couple of days where I would feel better. And then I'd go a day where I wouldn't feel better. I felt worse. So that was scary. It was an up and down kind of get better thing. But gradually I did get better. But there would be a couple of days here and there where I would progressively feel better, and then it was like I was backslide or some shit. And then mentally, it was fucking me up. Mentally, I had brain fog.
Whoa.
I couldn't remember the code to my phone. My phone got disabled and shit like that. I was all groggy and shit.
Whoa.
It was pretty gnarly, man. And then got through it. And I pray. I mean, I thank God. I mean, I was scared. I was absolutely petrified. And then I would be stuck in that back room. I was looking at the news, which I would try to, at some points, I'd be like, maybe you shouldn't watch the news as much, because that wasn't helping me, seeing all this shit going on and watching all these people being hospitalized and people dying. And I was scared to shit.
Yeah, I bet you were.
Yeah.
Have you ever been that sick in your life?
No, I've never, nothing like that. Nothing like that ever. And the funny thing was, my lady told me to start doing these streaming shows, and I was sick, right? So this is like about a week and a half, 2 weeks in, she started seeing people do these stream shows, and she said, you should do them, because we don't know when, we don't know when next time you're going to work or anything like that.
Right.
So I started doing streaming shows for my sunroom. I got a room over there. We call it the sunroom. And that's where I should be sitting now, but I'm not. There's some cool shit in the background. We got the little...
Also known as Paul Peterson's extra bedroom, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, no, I'm in the kitchen right now, right off of the back room, the extra room. But I started doing streaming performances, and so singing for an hour, it did wear me out, because after I would do a live stream show for an hour, I would be absolutely exhausted.
Right.
But it was helping me to exercise my lungs.
Therapy.
Because I had read up about that and about how to fight pneumonia, which was part of my experience with COVID. I had the pneumonia, like I told you earlier. And so doing breathing exercises and the singing helped me. Yeah. And gradually, when I felt good enough, I'd start taking walks around the block and shit like that.
Yeah. Whoa, what a journey.
Yeah. Man. So yeah, but now what's crazy is I'm kind of, I don't want to get that shit again. I'm like, this shit's still out there.
Yes, it's just totally reforming and
it's mutating and all of that kind of crap. But hey, the good news is we got to play some music recently. And we're still playing a little music, but let's hope people can realize, listen, if you want to be safe and you don't want to die or have any of your family members get deathly ill, get your health right. Do what you got to do.
Yeah. Well,
in my case, I mean, I had the COVID, so I had the natural antibodies. I also got vaccinated as well. So
got it.
I might have a double dose of protection. Let's hope that's the case. But
I'll tell you, man, I'm sure glad that you're okay. I know you went through it. You and I, we talked on the phone about that, and whew, that's a scary deal. I'm glad you pulled through.
Something. Yeah.
All right, so it's time to talk a little bit about the things you and I have in common. First of all, you and I both love funk. Second of
Yes,
all,
we do.
we both come from musical families. You got to
Yeah,
tell me about your family. What was it like growing up in
um,
your family?
pretty cool. Growing up with my dad and my uncles all being musicians,
Just because people
and
may not know who your dad or your uncles are, would you mind explaining who that
my
is?
dad is Aaron Neville, and my uncles are Cyril Neville and Art Neville and Charles Neville. Those two who are no longer with us.
Hmm.
That's crazy that I have to preface by saying that.
Whoa, I know.
Two of the Neville brothers are no longer with us
That's
in the
terrible.
physical, but they're in here. They're in here.
Yes, they are. I'll
And
get
whenever
to
you
that.
hear me sing or play anything, they're right there with me all the time. So it was pretty awesome seeing those guys do what they were doing when I was a little kid, watching them cats, man. And I got to see other people around, like Alan Toussaint,
Hmm.
Dr. John, to name a couple, Willie T. Oh, yeah, could go on and on. And the Meters. My uncle had a band called the Meters, which is arguably one of the greatest funk outfits to come out of New Orleans or anywhere else for that matter.
Yes, sir.
And that was pretty cool coming from that stuff, and figuring out that I wanted to play music at a certain point around 15 years old or something like that. Now, I loved music way before that,
Right.
because I was listening to them. And I was watching them do what they were doing, but I was listening to the radio. And that's probably one of the coolest things about being my age, which I'm 61 years old.
Hey, you made it.
And
You made
I
it.
got to grow up listening to that music in the late 60s, early 70s. My favorite period was between 69 and 77.
Yeah.
The shit that came up. No, but then there's a little, because some other shit, the late 70s too, because that's when Prince,
I know.
78 was when I first heard of Prince.
Oh, yeah.
And I know your connection in the Minneapolis funk situation and all of that shit. So I'm just saying that to say that period, and that music was inspired. The people that made like Prince and people like that were inspired by that other shit as well.
Of course.
As
James,
you can hear, it's inspired by
Sly,
James
all
Brown,
those guys.
Sly, and Family Stone,
Yes.
all the
Yes.
P-Funk shit, all of that stuff. So, that's where we get all our shit from that era. To me, was a special time to be listening to the radio. And you went and found the shit. It wasn't like how music's so readily available right now. You can go on your phone or on the computer and go find anything that exists. But back then, you had this. If you weren't listening to the radio, you had to seek that shit out.
Yes, you did.
And it was some fun times, man. And to be from the Neville family in New Orleans, seeing all these bands. And then there were times when I got a little special treatment here and there when bands would come through town. I was able to get in a couple of shows that maybe some of my friends weren't able to get into, things like that. But I remember the stuff that really caught my attention, and there was a couple of concerts that come to mind right off the bat.
Tell me about them.
One of them was I went to see War, and opening up for War was Tower of Power.
Oh.
All right. And the fun thing about that particular show, I went with my dad. This must have been 1975, somewhere around there, 75 or 74, 75. And War was really huge. War was big. War had all the hits. Yep. Cisco Kid, they're Slipping in the Darkness, all of this cool music. The World is a Ghetto. They had a lot of stuff. Their repertoire was pretty thick, and there were a lot of familiar songs that were popular. And they had a unique thing. They had a unique kind of islandy, kind of funky, kind of Latino. It was all kind of mixtures of shit in that War sound.
Gumbo.
Yeah, they had a gumbo shit going on. And the funny thing was, I went to that show with my dad, me and my dad, and one of his buddies. And that was the cool thing about going to it as well. I was no more than 14 years old or something like that. 14, maybe 15.
Perfect age.
And at the time, my mom and dad were not together. And so to go hang out with my dad was special during those couple, 2-3 years. You know, that kind of thing happens when the dynamic of the family is kind of fragile and kind of, you know, a little injured. So me and the dad spending quality time, and then we went to a concert. And we went to see Walt. Now, lo and behold, we had heard of the opening band, Tower of Power, because they had the song So Very Hard to Go was the only song we really were familiar with. That was a big hit song on the radio. So very hard to go.
Yeah.
You know, you remember that shit.
Oh, yeah.
And so the funny thing was, War came on first. And they were so fucking badass. And they were so funky. Rocco with that fucking them bass lines and the rhythms and the horns. You know, Tower of Power. Tower of Power.
They went up. Tower went on first.
They went on first.
Okay.
And it was hard.
And they wore them out.
War had all the hits, but it was like, damn, what can you fucking do after that?
Garibaldi
and that was the lesson learned.
Huh? Garibaldi and Rocco.
Yeah, Rocco on bass and shit, and Emilio and Doc and all of cats. Mm-hmm. That was the lesson to be learned. Like, damn, you don't want to play after Tower of Power.
So that was one of the big influences.
That was
on you
made a big impact on me. That
Yeah.
and seeing that happen. And I mean, I love the War still.
Oh yeah,
that band War, but Tower of Power was stomping, and I hadn't heard that type of funk at that point. So that was killer, you know. So that was some Bay Area funk, you know. People don't know, but
I was going to ask you, and I was going to ask you later, but that's a perfect transition, man. There are so many different brands of funk.
Dude,
you got some Oakland funk, you got some New Orleans funk, you got some Memphis funk, you got some Minneapolis funk,
some Ohio funk. Ohio.
Thank you for including that. Absolutely. Yeah, I know I was going to leave out a region.
Fucking Dayton, Ohio, and Cincinnati with Bootsy and fucking Slave and Ohio players and all that shit. Dude, no, so that shit, that hit me really hard. Now, I didn't know I started playing music like not that long after that. I started playing piano.
Got it.
And my dad taught me a couple of songs. He could play a little bit of piano. He taught me a couple of tunes. And I started listening to the radio and learning songs off the radio. That's pretty much it. And then this amazing piano player, probably the baddest piano playing man I'd ever heard in my life at that point and to this day. I've still not heard anyone that is bad as James Booker.
Oh.
James Booker was a bad man on the piano. He was a family friend. He went to grade school with my dad. He went to high school with my mom. And he used to come by the house every so often. He'd stop by the house. Something like maybe a couple times a year, maybe James Booker would show up. And it'd be an event because he'd come and my mom would definitely make him go sit by the piano and play. And he had a knack for he was classically trained and he had a knack for taking some classical shit and putting a funky barrel house, boogie woogie, funky knuckle New Orleans feel to anything. He was amazing. Like Dr. John, if you were alive right now, and you probably, if you could hear some excerpts from him talking, I'm sure you will hear him talking about James Booker.
No kidding.
Bad dude. So anyway, he taught me a couple little things. I can't play that Booker type of piano, but he taught me one song, and that song was called Big Chief. And that's a Professor Longhair song. Okay. And if you're a New Orleans piano player, you must know how to play that song. And the version I learned was from James Booker.
Man.
And the unique thing about that song is it's a piano player's tune, but everybody plays it slightly different. Mm-hmm. Like if you would hear Dr. John's version or Alan Toussaint's version or my Uncle Art's version or Booker's version or Professor Longhair, who's the original, it was his song. all of them played it slightly different. And it's a funny thing when you listen to the little subtle nuances, how they tricked it out and everybody put their own thing to it. And this is true
Stylized
today.
it for themselves, right?
Yes, everybody takes it and makes it their own little thing. And the guys that are playing,
That's what we do when we learn
yes,
from
you know
our
what I'm saying?
mentors. We take it
cool
all in.
as shit. Yeah, so that's a cool one. That's a cool thing. Now I'm gonna tell you, since I'm in the presence of Minneapolis royalty. You know, you are from the Peterson family and from the Paisley Park family, the Prince family, all that shit. Hey, I'm serious. Hey, when I heard, I think this was 1979. It might have been 79 when I heard Prince with his first band, with the first group that was touring. It was with Andre Simone.
Oh yeah.
Des Dickerson on guitar, and the rest of them. The rest of them were there. Lisa Coleman and Matt Fink and Bobby Z.
Bobby Z. Yeah, you named them all, man.
Yeah, and Andre and Des Dickerson. That when I heard them play, dude, that was the best sounding live band I've ever fucking heard up to that point.
Oh,
and I'm talking about the sound. And it wasn't like, you know how when you have a record and you want to present the record, but a lot of times you can't really totally duplicate that sound live and it translate. So you make it its own thing live. Well, Prince, he played all those instruments,
He sure
but
did.
everybody in that band sounded like him. And when I went and saw them play the first time at the Sanger Theater in New Orleans, I was blown a fucking way. I was like, wow, listen how this sounds. And, you know, I was totally impressed. Now, I got to tell you, the next time I saw him, the time opened up.
Oh, speaking of opening acts, stealing the thunder.
Yes, the time opened up and the time stomped him.
They wore him out.
The time did the same thing that Tower Power did to Wall. They did that to Prince and him. I was like, God damn.
Can you imagine what Prince was going like? I've created a monster.
Yeah, right. And I heard stories about that. I was at some event. I heard Jimmy Jam tell a lot of stories about some of that stuff and some of those times with Prince. And I was like, okay, after hearing him tell the stories, I could imagine. Because he didn't like them opening up like in certain markets. I think like L.A., he didn't let them open up.
He would pull them.
Maybe New York.
He would do that, yeah. Because he didn't want that much competition. He liked that extra money coming in, but he was like, wait a minute now.
Them motherfuckers funky.
Oh, what did I do here? Man. So you're a kid, you're getting all these influences, you're in an incredibly prolific family, cousins, uncles, all this stuff. Was there ever a time when you said, this isn't for me, or did you ever think you were going to do anything else other than music?
No.
Okay. Yeah, I hear that.
No, I did not. I never, and I mean, maybe part of it was out of maybe laziness because I didn't really prepare to learn anything else to do. So like, what the fuck else am I going to do?
And there's the truth, ladies and gentlemen.
No, there was for a long time. I did have a sideline.
Tell me about that. We call that segment the side gigs. What was the sideline?
No, my sideline, it was very destructive. It was getting high.
Oh.
Getting loaded. It was doing drugs and shit.
Oh.
And drinking like a fish. It was that stuff.
But you got really good at it, didn't you?
That was my hobby. I was too good at that.
Yeah.
And it took over.
Yeah.
It took over a little bit and
you got your party card revoked, didn't you?
It started making the music kind of suffer a little bit.
No kidding.
A lot. Yeah. And then at a certain point, I started dancing with the idea of maybe I should stop doing that shit. And I went on about an 8-year or so period where I tried to stop.
Yeah.
And I went to treatment centers. And I think starting in like 1989. And I had gone but by this point, we had done the first wino. I'd done a record with Keith Richards with the Winos. I played on a Stones record in the mid '80s.
Yep.
And I had seen that side of music meets Get High and shit and that stuff. And I took it to the extreme. I really did. And then I started going to treatment centers in '89, and my last one, number 6, was in 1998, and that was it. And I haven't had a drug or a drink since then. To be exact, August 14th, 1998.
Congratulations, man. That's,
Next month will be 23 years.
23 years.
23 years. Nice little run. Yeah.
It's funny because I remember seeing you on that tour with Keith and Charlie.
In Europe.
In Europe. Because I was playing with David Sanborn, my brother.
Yes.
We partied in the hotel lobby.
Yes.
We were in the, that's got to hurt. I mean, I barely remember that.
Yes, I remember that. I do remember that.
Yeah, I do too, man. We were a little younger then.
We were very much younger, and I was pretty bored. That tour, now I must say, that tour, I had a blast.
Yeah.
I would not tell anyone that I didn't have fun doing some of that stuff. Right. I had some fun times.
Right.
But at a certain point, the misery and the soul sickness that I went on to feel far outweighed any fun that I was going to ever have. And then obviously the fun got less and less and less and less.
Right.
And the consequences and the misery got greater and greater. And it didn't even out. It didn't make it worth doing, like, okay, this little 10 minutes of fun I might have, is it worth feeling like shit for a long period of time? Because that's what it became. It became in search of that feeling, and that feeling of any kind of euphoria would maybe 5, 10 fucking minutes of hours and hours and days of obsession about it.
Right.
Obsessing and searching for it, trying to find that perfect little blend of shit that was never to come.
Whew. Yeah, it takes over your life. It's too much work.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's much easier this way.
Right. So your sobriety, man, that's first of all, that's encouraging, and I appreciate you telling that portion of your story. My fans of this show know that I've been sober since '99 as well. And I think it's important to just give perspective on what that is and what made you quit, and how is your life? I guess the next question would be, how is your music better?
Okay.
Because you're sober.
The music is a whole nother, it's a whole nother something that I never even could have wildly imagined, because I actually feel stuff for real. And every nervousness and insecurity, all that stuff, the vulnerability, it's all there. And that's all part of being a human being. And I accept it. And there's times when I feel amazing.
Yeah.
There's times when I feel peaceful.
Yeah.
There's times when I feel really good. And there's times when I don't feel so good.
Well, yeah, but you can experience all that.
It's just not as drastic. The ups and downs are not as drastic as they used to be. And that's the major part. The major part is that I'm mostly comfortable in my own skin most of the time. And the highs are not as high, where the ego is not as ruling and dominant. The highs are not as high, and the lows are not as low.
Right.
So it's hills instead of mountains and dungeons.
You get to deal with life. It's
Little
easier to deal, isn't it?
It's life. It's just life. And then you're happy sometimes, and sometimes you're okay, and sometimes you're all right. But most of the time, you're comfortable in your own skin. Yeah. And to me, that's the biggest miracle of all of it. And then you're able to remain teachable. and to keep learning.
Teachable,
And
being teachable.
Yes.
That is so important what you said there, because that's a life lesson that this planet needs to focus in on. Being teachable in all aspects, in social justice.
Everything.
Everything.
I want to learn. And if I don't know, I'm going to ask the question.
Don't be afraid to ask a question.
If I don't know what that word means, I'm going to ask, what does that mean? I'm not sure what that means.
Thank you.
And I get that a lot from younger, not to brag on the next generations to come in and, but I'm associated with some of my younger brothers that I play music with and stuff like that. And a lot of times they don't know that there's no such thing as a dumb question. Sometimes they would rather pretend they know something. They think it's uncool to admit that they don't know something.
That's right.
It's uncool to pretend you know some shit you don't know.
Hey, thank you.
Because then you'll never know.
Right. Just say help. Right.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
You know what? One of the cool things that we get because of your sobriety is that you can continue to make smart, important, funky rock records with great musicianship. Tell me a little bit about your band Dumpster Funk and the new record, because I'm going to talk about some of the stuff you're talking about on there. That's important for you and I to talk about.
Yeah. Okay. So the Dumpster Funk. So I know these two guys. One's name's Nick Daniels III, and one's name's Tony Hall. Now I got an opportunity to play a gig around a while ago, early 2000s, maybe 2003, to perform at the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival. And I was like, you know what? I want to maybe play this show and maybe put together a band. And who am I going to call to play this gig? I said, I think I'm going to call my little cousin Ian, because he's an aspiring little funky guitar player. I'm going to get him. I think I'm going to get this guy Raymond Weber to play drums. And who am I going to get on bass? Is it going to be Tony Hall or Nick Daniels? And then I was thinking to myself, and I immediately thought of about 2 or 3 songs that you could have 2 basses on. And I know both of those guys sing like nobody's business. So I'm going to call both of them. So I call Tony and Nick.
2 bass
and Tony, yes. So Tony also plays guitar. So I knew there would be some songs we can incorporate a 2 bass thing, and sometimes Tony would play guitar. And that was the beginning of Dumpster Funk. Now I knew those guys. I knew Nick since I was maybe 10 years old. And I knew Tony since I was maybe 15 or 16 years old. So these are guys that I've known, and our musical paths have been kind of linked over the years. Being from New Orleans, coming from, they both have a lineage to the Nevilles and the Meters and stuff like that. So that's what that initial core band that we called Dumpster Funk. That was the beginning of that, and it was a side project. And until it ended up being our full-time job, was playing with Dumpster Funk. That was our bread and butter gig. And we were lucky enough to make a couple of records and have a couple of shows that were talked about enough amongst this new breed of audience. And it was called the jam scene. It's what I found out about a lot of kids that are music lovers that like good music. Whether you are popular in mainstream or not, if you got some good music and you could maybe find an audience. So we found an audience in this pocket of music lovers. And we've been hanging out, man. We've been hanging out for quite a while. And the funny thing was, this past couple years, some tragic things happened that really gave that band momentum. And one of them was Hurricane Katrina. Mm-hmm. That kind of kicked us in the butt, where we had no other choice but to go out and play and to figure out what we were doing. And the possibility of New Orleans as a place, as a state of mind, being absolutely destroyed from a natural disaster was on everybody's mind. So New Orleans musicians were in turn much appreciated around the world.
Right. And
So
who better to go out and play but you?
Post Katrina, we went out and played, and we were representing, and people were digging it, and that kind of helped us build this thing even more so. And so I'm gonna fast forward to now this recent times. So we got the pandemic come up on us. So like we were talking about when we first started talking, when I saw you a year ago, a little over a year ago now, and then we saw each other again this past March in New York again at the scene of the crime.
Yes.
During that last year and a half or so, we had time to we had a lot of time on our hands, right?
Yes, we
a lot of time. And so we had some music that we had been developing over the couple years prior. But we hadn't put it together as far as let's make a record. We were just recording stuff over when we had time off. We'd go in the studio, record a song, record 2 songs, and maybe 2 months or 6 months later, we record another couple of songs. So we ended up listening. We like, you know what? We got a bunch of stuff. We got a few things that need to be finished. We need to finish writing a couple of things, but we have some stuff that we could go. We got a record. Yeah. Let's start putting this together. And we had the time to do it. So we did. We went and did all the stuff you do to put, we went and comped a bunch of stuff and edited this and that. And we actually recorded a couple of things during the pandemic. We got together and recorded a couple of things that we had been playing on the shows prior. One song in particular was a remake of a Buddy Miles song. It's called United Nations Stomp. And that was a song that was a song we felt, people need to hear this song. And it was kind of an obscure Buddy Miles song.
Sounds
that
like
wasn't like
you made it yours.
No, it does. It was one we were able to make our own thing. We were like, okay, let's play this one. Mm-hmm. And we had another song that was called "Where Do We Go From Here," and we thought that was so coincidental that look where we're at now, and the words to that song and the meaning behind the song meant so much more now. Yeah. So it ended up being the title track. Where do we go from here? And it made so much sense when we put that record out this past April.
Well, I'm going to commend you on something. I don't mean to interrupt you, but what you did with that for me as a listener is that you dealt with social issues in a way that was positive and how to move forward through, in my opinion, education, being teachable, and being funky. Yeah. The way you approach that, I thought was so beautiful, man. And you still want people to move, and you still have a message to give, but the way you deliver that was so great. And so I commend you guys on that record. I had such a ball researching this interview with you.
Oh, man, thank you, Bob. Thank you. It means a lot coming from you, brother. That means a lot, come on, man. Oh, well, the funny thing about it was, we a lot of time, like we had the one song that we rebooted. It was a song that we had released 4 or so years ago. Justice. And it was because of that song. Yeah. And things had been happening, the things that happened this past summer, last year in the summer. Right there, yes, yes. George Floyd, that's right, in Minnesota, right around your way.
For an example, yeah. I mean, there was many other things.
One of the many others, the Breonna Taylors of the world, and so on. It meant a lot to reboot that song, and we got our man Charlie Tuna from Jurassic 5 to put a rap on it. Yeah, and maybe make it a little more current if we could. And we did a video for it. It made sense. Now I'm going to tell you the one song on that record that I'm kind of proud of. And it's the one song that I probably, of all of those songs, it's a song that I would never actually try to record. You know how there's certain songs that you just, I'm not going to mess with that.
And we did the right one. Let me see you say it.
We did one on this record. I don't know. You can't, that original version of that song, you can't do that. But vocally, I think we captured the essence of it, and I think musically we did all right. And I'm talking about the Sly and the Family Stone song,
Yes,
In
sir.
Time.
Exactly what I was going to say.
That's one you don't mess with. Normally, I would never cut something like that and
I thought you honored that beautifully, man.
I thought we kind of did, and I felt pretty cool about that. Yes. Yeah.
Just because in the essence of time, because we both have to hop off. I know you got stuff going on, and I actually have a gig coming up. So
oh, you got to go play, man.
You have been on the road for a lot of your life. You're 61 years old now. Give the listeners an idea of what being healthy means to you.
Being healthy?
Yeah. Because, here's the deal is that this show is called Music on the Run, and we focus on how you stay healthy in your relationships, on the road, eating, whatever. What does that mean to you?
It is the most important thing. And I'm talking both the physical and the mental, both. And to some degree, there's some aspects of it that go hand in hand, but then there's, sometimes you're dealt a bad card, and you might get you might get a hold of something that's you have no control of, and that happens in life. But if you have any way the control that you do have, you just got to really do your best to practice learning how to be good to yourself. And knowing that, okay, like I appreciate my mental health so much right now because of some of the things that we were talking about. And to get through, it's so frustrating in life to feel up. Hang on 1 second. 1 second.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be right back after this brief commercial message. Don't forget about patreon.com/music podcast.
Hang on. What did I do?
Okay. I just did a commercial in there. It's totally fine.
Oh, you did? Okay, that's good. That's good. Now, something was on the stove. I had to turn it off. It started boiling.
Don't burn the food, man.
Yeah, man. Hey, so having to travel and having to go being around, especially in this day and age now too, especially you got to be extra careful about a lot of things that you maybe took for granted before. Yeah. So that in itself, and like I was talking about the mental side of it, you know, being grounded and finding some sort of, one of the main things for me is usually if I'm thinking about myself, I'm usually off. And I'm susceptible to some bullshit. But when I'm thinking of what can I do to help, what can I do to be a better guy in this house? What can I do to be a better player with my compadres playing music and whatnot? When I'm thinking like that, I'm usually in a very cool place. And mentally, it strengthens me, and it makes me acknowledge gratitude, and it enables me to be living more in humility and shit like that. And it just helps me to just stay grounded and to just be cool and to know that I'm not looking for some fucking, I've got some short-term goals, and I'm gonna try to attain them, and I'm gonna just try to do the next right thing. And it seems to kind of work out. And I've tried to figure out my eating habits, eat better stuff. At my age, if I want to hang around for a while, I got to eat a little bit better. Yeah. I got to drink more water. I got to eat more stuff that's green. Yep. I can't be eating at night. Just little things. I just recently discovered the not eating at night thing.
That's hard on the road, man. That's discipline.
No, you know what? It's very hard on the road because your hours are so messed up.
Yep.
But I've been doing it out there.
Man, that's great. What great word, man. Thank you for sharing that.
Oh,
And
man,
look,
thank you, Paul.
hey, I want to thank you for taking this time out to do this. This means so much to me on a musical family level, from the Petersons to the Nevilles. You know we love
thank
you.
you,
You
my
know
brother.
that
Yes, same here.
we must do a gig before we leave this planet.
We must
together
do that.
as
Yes.
families.
Yeah.
We have to figure that out somehow.
Yeah, why don't we get the Dakota room over there and do something one day?
Man, I'm telling you,
Why don't we
I
grab
think
that
that
room?
happened, people would flip
Why
out.
don't we try to work on that?
I'm going to do that.
Why don't we
Watch.
do it? I'll bring like a drummer or something.
Come on.
And then you get a couple of cats, and then
Yep.
we could just
I'm in.
pick some songs
I'm
and
100%
do some
in.
stuff. Let's do it.
Thank you. Everybody, thank you for joining us. This is Music on the Run. That's Ivan Neville, one of the
Thank you,
greatest.
Paul.
We will see you in a couple of weeks. Music on the Run was hosted by yours truly, St. Paul Peterson. Edited and produced by my buddy Davide Raso. Artist relations by Owen Sartori. Video editing by Tanner Montague. And a very special thanks to the people who financially support this podcast. And remember, remain teachable.